Good day, everybody. I hope that you're well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 3 to 5 English lesson on sentences, fragments, and run ons. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts grade 3 to 5. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter on sentences, fragments, and run-ons. All right. So our chapter is sentences, fragments, and run-ons. Our subject is English Language Arts. We're doing grade 3 to 5. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of is it a complete sentence or fragment? And is it a complete sentence or run on? All right. So when it comes to sentences, fragments, and run-ons, right? Starting with a sentence. A sentence or completed sentence, right? It is a group of words. So a sentence, it is a group of words that forms a complete thought. So a sentence, right? It is a group of words and that forms a complete thought. And when it forms a complete thought, right, then a sentence has both a subject as well as a verb within that sentence. It has both subject and it has a verb. And if we look at an example, right, of a sentence that forms a complete thought, and we see that it has both a subject and it has a verb. It says, my friends walk along the path. So my friends walk along the path. And if we were to identify our subject and our verb in order to show that it is a complete sentence, then there we have the subject, which is my friend, and walk or walk along the path is our verb, but walk is our verb. And of course, when we write a sentence, our sentence starts with a capital letter and it ends with an end point. And when we say it ends with an end point, then we mean it can be a period, can be a question mark, or it can be an exclamation mark or an exclamation point. And then once again, a sentence, right? It is a group of words that forms a complete thought. And it has both a subject, the person or thing that we are talking about, and it has a verb that is the action that the person or thing is doing. And then we have a fragment, right? Or a sentence fragment. And a sentence fragment, it is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. It doesn't express a complete thought. And when it comes to sentence fragment, right? Since it doesn't express a complete thought, a sentence fragment, or let's say a fragment, it's either missing a subject. So it's usually either missing a subject or it misses a verb. So one of the two is missing. Either it misses a subject or it misses a verb. And if we look at an example, right, of a fragment, we say knows the answer. Knows the answer. And if you look at that sentence, knows the answer. Now the question is who knows the answer? So who knows the answer is the question, which means that this sentence, it is missing a subject because now who or what knows the answer? So the difference between the three, right, is a sentence has both subject and it has a verb. So which means that it's a completed sentence. It's like saying, um, Nancy walks home, right? Nancy is the subject, the person or thing that we're talking about, and walks is the action or the verb that Nancy does. So this is a completed sentence. It has a subject, a person or thing that we're talking about, and it has an action that the person or thing does, right? That is a sentence. Then when we have a fragment, right? A sentence fragment, it's either missing a subject, like for example, if we just say walks home. Now the question is who walks home because they did not put the subject. Or it's like saying Nancy does something, for example, but without the verb. So they can either, for example, not have the verb or you don't have the subject in that sentence. So which means that whatever that's missing, whether it is a subject that is missing or a verb that is missing, that is a fragment. So remember, a sentence needs to have both a subject and it needs to have a verb. Like for example, here, knows the answer. Knows is, for example, our verb. But now the question is who knows the answer? So this one is missing a subject, which means that this is a sentence fragment. Then if we look at this sentence, it says the bright red car. So here they're just describing the car, bright red car. They're describing that subject, right? But they're not saying what the subject is doing, what the thing is doing, which means that in this sentence, it is missing a verb. So that is a sentence fragment. It is either missing a subject or it is missing a verb, which means that it does not have a complete sentence. And then we have a run on sentence. And a run on sentence, it is made up of two sentences, right? That is basically joined together without the punctuation. So, which means that these sentences are supposed to be on its own, but they now basically put the sentences together. So, it's the same as if you are writing an essay and you are just writing and you are going on and on and on instead of putting the full stop where it must be, instead of putting the period where it must be, the exclamation point where it must be, the question mark, you just continue by just adding maybe commas, right? That is a run on sentence. You are saying way too much in that sentence. So you're putting, for example, two or more sentences in one sentence. So that is a run on sentence. All right. Does that Was that clear enough as to what a run on fragment as well as a sentence is? All right. So that is basically our subject, a sentence, which we said is a group of words that forms a complete thought, and it has both subject and it has a verb. And then we said a sentence fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. It is either missing a subject or it is missing a verb. That is a fragment. And then we have a run on sentence. We said a run on sentence, right? It is made up of two sentences that are joined with an in punctuation or just with a comma. And an example, right, of a run on sentence, it says, I knocked on the door, it opened. So if you look at this sentence, right, I knocked on the door, it opened. As you can see, this is basically one, it's almost like written as one sentence, but this should have been two sentences because yeah, it should have been split over there. It should have been I knocked on the door, period, it opened. And then if we look at the next one also, it says, it started raining, comma, we ran inside. This is also two sentences that should be on its own, but instead of it being on its own, they put a comma. So now it basically continues. It's like it's adding on. And we call that a run on sentence. All right. And in order for us to fix a run on sentence, we can then separate the two sentences, almost like I did here, where I kind of split it. We can then fix that run on sentence by separating it into two sentences and writing it correctly. Right? But once again, just to recap, we said a sentence is a group of words that forms a complete thought and it has both subject and it has a verb. And then we see the sentence fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. And it usually is missing either a subject or a verb. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and we're going to first say, is it a complete sentence or a fragment? We're going to look at the sentences and we're going to say, is it a complete sentence or is it a fragment? All right. We need to say, if we look at the sentence, right? If we look at these two sentences, we need to say which one is a sentence fragment. So, which one is a sentence fragment? Remember, we said a sentence fragment is either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. So, which one is a sentence fragment? Which is a sentence fragment? Is it the first one, and Kate's heavy baggage, or she put salt in the soup? Which one is the sentence fragment? So is it the first one that says, and Kate's heavy baggage? Or is it option two, she put salt in the soup? We need to say which one is a sentence fragment. All right. And if we were to choose the sentence fragment, then yes, we will say, and Kate heavy baggage. Because now the question is, what about and Kate's heavy baggage? So that is a sentence fragment. Well done. All right. So now let's go to our test. We need to say, is it a complete sentence or is it a fragment? So once again, we need to say which is a sentence fragment. Option one, and Kate's heavy baggage, or option two, she put salt in the soup. Which one is correct? All right. And if we were to choose the sentence fragment, then we would say it's option one. Well done. Option one is correct. All right. The next one says, we need to say which is a sentence fragment. A sentence fragment. It says big goes on a big adventure, or option two, he drew an arrow on the sign. So is it option one, goes on a big adventure? So we need to say which one is a sentence fragment, option one or option two. Remember, a sentence fragment does not express a complete thought. It either is missing a verb or it's missing a subject. So goes on a big adventure, or he drew an arrow on the sign. We need to say which is a sentence fragment. Sentence fragment. And if we were to choose the option that is a fragment, it is not a completed thought. It's either missing a subject or it is missing a verb. Then we can say it's option one, goes on a big adventure. And the reason why it's option one, because the question is who goes on a big adventure. It just says goes on a big adventure, but it doesn't say who, which means that there's no subject. All right, we need to say which one is a completed sentence, meaning it has a subject and it has a verb. It says lives in a saltwater environment, or option two, no clouds were in the sky. So we need to show the complete sentence. And a complete sentence has a subject and it has a verb. And if we were to choose the correct option, oopsie. And then we're going to choose option two. Yes, because option two has both subject and it has a verb. All right. And we need to select now the complete sentence. Remember, a complete sentence has both subject and it has a verb. Is it option one, arrived at the beach? Or option two, ferns grow in shady places? We need to select the sentence, the completed sentence. So option one or option two, we need to select the sentence, a completed sentence that has both subject and it has a verb. So completed sentence, is it option one, arrived at the beach? Or option two, ferns grow in shady places? And if we were to select the correct sentence, then we can say ferns grow in shady places. Well done. Option two is correct. All right. And then we need to say, is this a sentence fragment, meaning it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb? It says option one, sold a black coat, sold a black coat, or option two, the cook always wear an apron. We need to select the sentence fragment. The sentence fragment. It says option one, sold a black coat, or option two, the cook always wear an apron. All right, and if we were to select the sentence fragment, then we will choose option one. Yes, well done. Because it just says sold a black coat. Now the question is, who sold a black coat? All right. So now we're going to say, is it a completed sentence or is it a run on? And remember, we said a run on sentence, it is made up of two different sentences that can stand on its own. All right. We said a run on sentence, right? It is made up of two sentences that is joined together without a punctuation mark or point. All right, so now let's do our test where we are going to say, is it a sentence or is it a run on? So is it a completed sentence or is it a run on? All right, so a run on sentence, we need to say which one is a run on sentence. Is it option one that says, we wanted a snack, we ate some cherries? Or option two, after the show, all of the actors bow? Which one is correct? Which one is a run on sentence? All right. And if we were to select the correct option, then we could say it's option one. Because we can separate that sentence by saying, we wanted a snack, period. We ate some cherries. So option one is a run on sentence. Yes. A run on sentence, right? It's like when you have two different sentences that could have just been a one sentence and period, but instead you wrote it two sentences in one sentence. Like, for example, All right. And if we were to select a run-on sentence, we will choose option 2. Remember, it is basically like saying two sentences are in one sentence. And if we were to fix that run-on sentence, then that two sentences will then stand on its own. And if we were to choose the run-on sentence, then yes, we need to say, is this a run-on sentence? Josie just moved here. She's new to our country. Let's say no. It's actually yes, because Josie just moved here is on its own, and then she's new to our country is also on its own. But well done for trying. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on sentences, fragments, and run-ons. We see the completed sentence has both subject and it has a verb. And it expresses a complete thought. Then we have a sentence fragment, right? That does not express a complete thought. It is either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. And then we have a fragment, and a fragment is made up of two independent clauses that is basically joined together by no in punctuation point or with a comma. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining the class, and I really hope that you are going to have a good day further. So, till next time, goodbye.